Belquis, let me come to you. You and your co-author write about the grave suffering that Afghans experienced first on account of foreign interference during the Cold War and then foreign neglect after Soviet withdrawal. As the US draws down its remaining forces, I wonder if you can talk to us a bit about the possibilities for this moment to be different. Can we once and for all bring this devastating cycle of occupation and then abandonment to an end? You also detail the many complex social, political, and military roles that Afghan women have long played, even as their contributions are often left unwritten in the histories that we read. You know, it's impossible not to notice today that some of the most powerful advocates for a sustained US-Afghan relationship, one of partnership and respect, are Afghanistan's women's activists. So I wonder if you can also share with us a bit about their vision of what a new kind of partnership between our countries.
Thank you, Dipali, and also thank you to Cocker Advocate for allowing me to share my personal views here and also on the book. So unlike others, I see many similarities in the direction Afghanistan is headed to. I would also like to acknowledge that today's Afghanistan is vastly different from that of the 1980s. The political and security situation in Afghanistan is directly affected by the geopolitics of the region. The conflict there is not only a domestic issue. The tension between Pakistan and India directly impacts the Afghan situation. On the other hand, tension between other countries, such as Iran and US, and also US, Russia, has had in the past and continues to have a negative impact on the Afghanistan's politics. The India-Pakistan tension have become more contentious, in my view, compared to that of the 1980s or 4 decades ago. Unfortunately, most Afghan leaders in the recent decades have lacked long-term vision for the stability and prosperity of the country. Where there has been a visionary leader, the regional powers have silenced them. And somehow a visionary and patriot Afghan leader is perceived as a threat by the country's closest neighbors. So how can things be different? We are where we are. I think for a stable Afghanistan, a number of commitments must be made. One is that the most important one is that the regional powers must end their proxy wars in Afghanistan. And they must come to the consensus that political crisis and meddling in the country's affairs and is going to further destabilize the region and also their own countries. And they must stop meddling in the country's affairs and stop supporting the war profiteers. They must also replace their divide and conquer policies and efforts with cooperation, economic prosperity, counterterrorism, and counter-narcotics. They should come to the realization that those Afghan leaders and factions who choose personal, party, and factional interest over the will of their own people, Afghan people, are not worthy of support. On the issue of abandonment, the last time the US decided to step back from Afghanistan in the 1980s, the Afghan people ended up paying a tremendous price. By pulling back its support to Afghanistan and Afghan people, the US and the West left a vacuum that was filled by disruptive forces such as Al-Qaeda and also other neighboring states. The Afghan government needs, at this point, strong commitments from the international community regarding continued support in the development of Afghanistan and also in securing the country and protecting their own people. On the issue of Afghan women, Afghan women, like women elsewhere, have played and continue to play multiple roles, both passive and active, in either building peace, preventing violent conflicts from escalating at local and tribal level, and also providing logistics support to warring factions. There is no secret in that. This was true in the 80s, and it's also true today. You asked about the vision of Afghan women. I think the vision of Afghan women is clear. They want peace. They want an end to the war. They want economic prosperity, democratic principles, and better life for their people and for their children. They're a force that deserves to be supported and protected by international community. But most importantly, they deserve to be respected and protected by Afghan politicians and men. So for us, the choices are clear. We can either abandon the people of Afghanistan, just like we did in the 80s, and watch civil war and humanitarian crisis unfold before our eyes, and start all over again when the country is used to threaten our national security, or we can help Afghan people to overcome the challenges and rebuild their communities and their country. I could be biased, but the resiliency of Afghan people and girls is a source of inspiration and courage to many in the world. The two major organizations that have either claimed responsibility or stay accused of orchestrating attacks on schools and education institutions are Taliban and ISIS today. Both have inflicted unspeakable pain, including bombing hospitals and schools. But at the same time, we have seen video clips and pictures that the day after each attack, teachers report to work and girls go back to school. That's what I mean by resiliency. I hope the international community shows the same kind of courage as that father who walks his daughter to school the day after the attack. I do see our role and moral obligation to not let Afghanistan go back to the civil war just the way we watched in the 1980s. So the direction we are going, in my view, is not all that optimistic, but the end doesn't have to be this way. Thank you, Dipali.